That's cool. That really paints a picture. That's but you know what I noticed about that song is it's less. You've pulled back, so it's more broken down, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. And the one thing you'll see in my styles is they're all over the board. My heart doesn't pick and choose one style, you know. So some are just thrashing, some are snitches get stitches, and some are, you know what I'm saying, painted my eyelids.
The John O'Leary. John O'Leary
is one of my favorites in terms of the picture that paints. And for John O'Leary, I really believe if you knew John O'Leary, that's his life. That song, and I believe he's living on the air. And I believe that just what you're doing, Ron, and that's why I was so, I can't say there's a lot of shows I would love to do. Your show, when you called me, I was so excited and so honored because
I'm glad. Thank you.
What you're doing today, you know, it is so. All I thought about this morning was how, and you start talking right away about doing this on your podcast. You are doing what radio needs. Radio is a dying industry today because they failed to continue to do what you're starting today. And you today, I believe, are going to be the change on saving radio, because if the radio doesn't come back to that heart of the local musicians and the local heart, and to get, man, who's going to listen? Man, you know what I'm saying? And so you're an inspiration, Ron. And you know what? I fell in love with the Radio Dayz shows right off the get. Your video production work was obviously my first experience with you, which I just, if I can bring up Doug Podell's name, I mean, he's the one that connected me with you originally, and he did nothing but spoke super highly of, you know, he heard the song, he called me, he's like, you know, this song is wow, I couldn't believe what you did for this. I got to get you connected with Ron Robinson. This guy is the man. And to hear that come from him was huge. And so that
was very nice.
When I had faith right from the beginning. But then seeing your work, I was just like, wow. And now...
Well, that's nice of you to say. And that's kind of what I hope to accomplish with the docuseries, what started out as a movie about the history of radio. And, you know, you started with John O'Leary. And, you know, I've been looking at some of this, you know, as I prepare this for publication, looking at the cuts of John O'Leary in it. And it's just... it's what's interesting about the interview I did with John O'Leary. I didn't like how it was shot. In fact, John and I had we had plans to reshoot his part because I didn't like how it was shot. You know, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. It was my responsibility, but I just didn't like how it was shot. I didn't like how the interview was shot. I didn't like the angles. Didn't like the lighting. But with that said, because we never got a chance to reshoot before he was murdered, I went back, and the way it looks now, the way it's going to look in the movie, it's almost very white. It's almost very heavenly type of thing. And it's very, so yeah, it kind of turned out to where it's like now they're probably some of my favorite cuts in the series, because of not only because of what the issues he talks about, but just the way it was shot. It was kind of funny. What I didn't like before now turns out to be, it's funny how sometimes that works out. But with that said, before we now I went off on a tangent there. So, but no, I want to thank you again for writing the song Radio Dayz. And as I mentioned, this will be in one of the episodes. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but this is, for the first time anyone's hearing it anywhere, this is a song that Alex was kind enough to write for this project about the history of radio, which covers its story from its inception in 1920 to current day. And radio has definitely seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. But Alex seemed to find it in one song, and this is here's a little bit of the song called Radio Dayz.